The title of this presentation is Wireframes to Live in 12 weeks, which isn't very exciting for some small websites, but for some government websites or bureaucratic systems, it's quite fast to go to production. There could have been also other titles, for example, how to do Drupal 8 and Agile, or moving to the cloud with Drupal 8 could also have been an alternative title. More on that later. I'm Frederik Wouters. I was a mainframe engineer at KBC, at one of the biggest Belgian banks. I was doing mainframe for 3 years, and after 3 years of COBOL, I got bored, and I was longing for PHP and the development in PHP. So I started as a noob at Amplexer, which is a sponsor, but I didn't see anyone from Amplexer, so strange. But I started there for media companies, and after a few years of development there, I started freelancing for media companies. I then moved to the commercial media in Belgium. It's called Medialaan. There I did a few radio stations websites, and after 2 or 3 years I moved to the national broadcasting company. It's called VRT, and there as VRT I also started out as a backend developer, but I then evolved to like a team coach or tech lead, and now I'm doing less. There's almost no development class, so I'm more like the team coach, architect, a little bit of all those things for all the radio websites. In my spare time, which is much too few, I do some running. I also do some craftswork with remote-controlled electronics, and I like skiing. These are my homies, my sons Alexander, Andreas, and my wife Wieke. They have been very supportive. My wife has been looking after the children the last day. And this is my working station. It's a bit special because you can see that there's a desk on the desk. I work standing up. I'm a stand-up evangelist. I worked like this for the last, I think, 5 years or something like that. And I really encourage you to give it a try. You shouldn't stand up all the time in the same position. You should move around a little because it's not too good to stand still all the time. But it really changed the way I work. I get to focus much longer on the same subject. And it's also easier to just join your colleague and work together. So give it a try. Just put something on the desk. You can buy an IKEA hack for €7 and you can just give it a try. It's really fun to do. How you may know me is probably from Drupal.org, or I'm contributing some issues. I also try to fix the issues that I log, but it's not always a success. I have also supported some modules which are not used very much, but they're there, so that's good. I consider myself more the guy that encourages my developers to contribute. So I coach them in the development, in the contributions, more than I do it myself. Speaking of my colleagues, these are the gears in the big machine of the Belgian Flemish government radio, because that's sometimes how it feels. I guess some of you can relate. In bigger organizations, we're all just gears, and if you want to do some change, the best example I have is I wanted to move all the radio stations' websites from HTTP to HTTPS. It's a change which on the server only takes for 5 minutes. So if you take 5 minutes for 5 sites, and let's say it takes half an hour, you have a day with some extra, let's say a week. You take a week to move all the sites to HTTPS. It took me 1 year to move all these sites to HTTPS, with all the external parties, with all the permissions and decision making and all the meetings and all this shit. So therefore, I think it's important. You don't need just to stick to the rules. Think for yourself, change the rules, because, and this is one of the things I want to highlight, individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools. This is one of the Agile values. So that's most important. In our team, we evaluate at regular intervals, and as you see, these are postcards we write at retrospective. Greetings from last minute stam was one of the cards we had to think how we would write postcards to our home. So these are the postcards, some of the postcards that people were writing. Greetings from Absurdistan, greetings from Last Minute Stan. It was like we had to do firefighting all the time. Everybody was overloaded with work, and we were at a turning point. So at a certain moment, we had to evaluate, okay, we need to change some things. So we listed all the values which we thought was important for our customers, like these are things that our customers value in our team, and we scored ourselves. So we scored with some methods, and after a few months, we redid it, so we're doing it more times. And you see, if there's something which you score really bad, then you just make tickets, you put them in your backlog, and you take your time to just actually work on it. Just change what you're doing wrong. If your technical excellence is wrong, just make a ticket and improve, do something about it. And then you will see that in time, your team improves and your client contentment, the feedback will improve as well. The Agile principle that is important here is that you have to reflect on how to become more effective and tune and adjust. Why do you do that? Because the environment around you is constantly changing, and if what you're doing works now, it might not work in a month or a year. So you have to reflect constantly because everything is changing all the time. Okay, but we're talking about Radio 2. This is a Drupal 6 site. It was, and it had almost 10 years of coding inside of it. It was running, no problems. But of course, Drupal 6 is old, and we as the developers, we wanted it to move, but the editors and the management said, it's working, just leave it there. But we had this setup. So we have Radio 2, which is a Drupal 6 site, and next to those, we have a Drupal 7 repository where Clara, Radio 1, M&M, and Sturdy Brussels are running on. These are headless sites. Radio 1 and Clara are Node.js, React frontends, and Sturdy Brussels and M&M have an Angular frontend. That's the current situation. Radio 2 has a lot of visitors, a lot of submissions. There's a lot of interaction. The easy choice would be for us to move this Drupal 6 site, take it, and move it also in our Drupal 7 repository. That would be like the easiest choice. But we had a lot of trouble with this headless setup. So everybody's talking, oh yeah, headless is great, but you're doing a lot of the work, you're doing it double. And this is what we experienced. As EO, we had a lot of trouble with our Angular frontends to get indexed properly. We had web form components which we were building again. We had redirects were not working. All this trouble. Our Angular 1 was out of date. The mails, we couldn't send mails from the front end, so we needed to send them from the back end. We needed to pass the data on. You couldn't upload video files from these front ends, pass them on to the back end. All this stuff is like, oh man, headless is great, but so we thought, why shouldn't we move it to Drupal 8? And then maybe later on we could move the Drupal 7 sites also to this Drupal 8 content repository. So if we're doing it now, we're doing the hard work, and who doesn't like a little hard work? Okay, the team was ready for it. We were in for some challenge, but we needed to convince the architects. Architects, they go over all these, the ILITs, they call it, the system quality attributes. So I made an Excel sheet of all these quality attributes, and the architects were easily convinced. In VRT, the bosses go over costs. So to get them on our side, you need to know that we also have Adobe Experience Manager in our company. So we were competing directly with them. So we needed to give a good alternative. And for them, it was like the easiest choice financially would be just move to the Drupal 7 repository, but then we wouldn't be solving any problems. And we said, okay, look at it in the long term. The long term is we're moving to Drupal 8 either way in 5 years with everything. So we could do it now with the Drupal 6 side, and then we wouldn't have to move it again in some years. So instead of 2 migrations, we're only doing 1. And the other sites, have the groundwork laid for them, because now we're doing the groundwork in Drupal 8, and the migration will be easier on later on. So we got to convince those. Then there was the ops people. Well, yeah, convincing them was also easy because they also saw that Drupal 8, the release cycles, the security, there is a lot of vibe. So I can conclude that Drupal 7 is a dying breed, and if I can convince my company to go to Drupal 8, I think all of you can. So just give it a shot. Our usability, accessibility expert also did a review, and it also was approved. And I think it's just important to say, because accessibility, we focus on that very much. In Belgium, we do awards for that, and the previous talk also went about that. You should really make your site accessible for blind or impaired users. Take them into account. We had a session where an impaired person came and used the site, and they just block on the JavaScript in the menu, and it just stopped there. They cannot use the content of the site. Just have them test it once, try to fix those issues, and those people will be really happy using your website. So, but Drupal 8 is already better than Drupal 7, so that was good for us. And what also helped in our convincing the bosses was the examples on Drupal.org. These are the examples that I found on Drupal.org, but this list is way too small. So if you release a site, please upload it to Drupal.org, to the project, so everybody else can profit from it and convince their boss easier to go to the Drupal 8. But it was easy convincing our bosses, because Drupal 6, the PHP support was ending, Drupal 6 support was ending with the Drupal 8 coming live. So it was time, it had to go. Where do we start? We didn't just want to copy everything, because the site had 10 years of development. We would be in for a mega long track. It would be incredible. So we decided to start with actionable, valuable software or metrics. So the first thing we did was we started inquiring users. What are things users do on our website? We inquired dozens of users from all age ranges in all provinces of the country, and we let them design their ideal homepage and also describe what are the bad experiences on the site, and also why do you come to the site, and what is your journey throughout all our data, throughout the pages or the components. And out of this, our UX expert reviewed all this with his 82-year-old mother. It's a good sanity check if what you're doing is right. If an 82-year-old person says, oh yeah, it's very comprehensible, then you're doing things right. Out of this, we aggregated wireframes, which are the starting point for our new website. This is the user data of dozens to hundreds of users, and we know they're actually using the site, and this is important for them. Not important for the editors, not important of what we think. It doesn't have anything to do with what's on production right now. It's just what they want. Out of this, we created personas. These personas are not real persons, but they are persons we described with the journeys that are most important in the site. So there's one person who's going to listen to the live player. The other person is looking for a specific article he heard on the radio. And another person, he might just be looking at the program, what can I hear tomorrow on the radio? Out of this, we distilled stories, epics, and tasks. This was our starting point to build our MVP. So in our MVP, there was regular articles, a competition, newsletter subscription, a front page, of course, and 1 year of migrated articles. Because the migrated content was important, we saw this on the analytics in Google Analytics. We saw that the older content was very popular. They were the highest rating pages on the site, so it is important. And also, what's important for us, that it's usability and accessibility reviewed, because we cater to a big audience. You'll see in Agile that a lot of times they say in a team you need a product owner, a scrum master, and a development team. I think here you lack the client, because one of the Agile principles is that you work together daily throughout the project. We work together with the editors on a daily basis. We actually put them physically next to us. So we were sitting next to the guy from Clara, and we were fixing our bugs or our features better than before. We actually got to see the difference because we had 4 other radio sites where we also developed this website, and we saw that like the end-to-end time of the project was way shorter because just the guy was sitting next to us. We were faster in fixing bugs. So I can advise all of you to just go very close to your customer and listen to them very carefully. They will know the best what our clients are doing. If bad, it's even better to just look at the metrics. You can't. Metrics tell you what users actually are doing, but the editors have a very good idea of what's happening on the site. Also important is that we focused our people. We focused our hiring of the people. They should be T-profiled, so you have everybody in the team has a specialization, but it's also generally usable. The goal of this is that everybody can pick up any ticket, so that he only needs to ask 1 or 2 specific questions to the specialist to fix a certain issue, to solve a certain problem. This way, everybody can work simultaneously on every ticket of the backlog. If you put a bunch of these T-shaped people next to each other, they will automatically mix and mangle and search their position, and you will see that you get a very strong team. If you get people with their own unique strengths, and they will start teaching each other, and they will start influencing each other. And one of the things we actively promoted also was the pair programming and the swarming. We said in the plannings meeting, for example, this ticket, when we're solving it, you're doing it and you're pairing with him, and you were doing it and you're pairing also with the editor and also with the architect, and we're counting it into our work. And you saw that when 2 people or 3 people are looking at a certain feature, the outcome is better than if you're doing it alone, waiting 2 weeks, getting feedback, doing it again, waiting 2 weeks, getting feedback. The trajectory is much longer if you do it by yourself. It's much faster if you're just with the 2 or 3 people. You get them together and you just fix it right away. So it paid off. This is, I think, because the best way of conveying information is face-to-face. If we're talking face-to-face, you can immediately put the right nuances and the right accents, which is much more difficult if you're typing text in a Slack window. And if you're 2 or 3 persons typing text in a Slack window, so much of the information is lost. So I think it's really important to be close together. One of the other things which I thought was pretty special we didn't do before is just-in-time design. Normally, if we do a big site, we also have first a big design round. Every page is designed, every feature is designed till the pixel. And now the designer was told in the sprint, okay, we're going to fix the detail page, this sprint, make a design, we front-end it right away, and people can work on it because it's important, so they evolve longer. I'm going to fast forward. What is important here, responding to change over following plan. We saw that people who were iterating on the same designs over and over again, that's because the client thinks it's important. If it's not important, they won't be iterating over and over again, so it's not so important. So the collaboration and the working together really works out. What's also one of the important things in Agile is to maximize the work not done. We have a big collection of hit lists. We have a big collection of content, thousands, hundreds, thousands of articles. But we managed to prove by looking at the analytics that only migrating the important ones was important, because in analytics we saw that only the last 3 years were relevant information. So we still have now no Hitlist archive online because it's just not important. So we could also put this in the backlog again, so later on we can pick it up when it's relevant again. We also worked very close in collaboration with the Radio 2 people. So we went to the editors who are everywhere in the country. We asked them feedback, and we saw that the customer collaboration also gave us valuable feedback. why is it over contract negotiation? If we said, or we're going to fix this and this and this, but the actual feedback says, yeah, but we think this is more important and this is more important information. So we also have tests by accessibility efforts. I'm going to skip some slides, otherwise I'm not going to get the important stuff said. Working software is a primary measure of success. So very early in our project, after a few sprints, 12 weeks approximately, we have a working thing on beta with competitions and articles. What we did was track everything what's happening there. We tracked the 404 pages to see which pages are still requested the most and getting a 404, which components are used, and then we were using this feedback and also aggregated it with if people saw an error or people saw some content that wasn't migrated properly, then just we aggregated this feedback, and you see there's quite a lot of these. It's a very old screenshot. So people told us this is wrong, this is different. And in Agile, this feedback is more important than the editor that thinks the footer looks wrong. Because people are seeing these errors, it's more important than we think the footer looks wrong. So use the feedback from your people to adapt your product. Okay, so how did we do? In Agile, you know, when you estimate, you can see that your velocity goes up. This was a Christmas period, so it's normal in Christmas. Was it perfect, or Agile? Well, no, we had to also skip to Kanban for a short period of time. Just before the go-live, we switched to Kanban because there was all these small issues. There was no need to plan them, just we needed to get them as fast as possible. But the team decided to just move back to the Agile board because it works better, and you see the Kanban board is not used any longer, so it worked for us. I have a few takeaways I want to give you. Is Drupal 8 harder than Drupal 7? I think there is only a small hurdle to take if you want to get introduced, but in the end, it's not. We think it's also ready for big companies. And I'm 100% sure you can build Drupal 8 sites in an Agile way. What we found was that Contrib is not entirely ready. We had some trouble using the SVFS module, and there was some LDAP trouble and a few of these things. But we are contributing as well, so it would be better if everybody started bumping into these bugs and fixing them together. Then we will have more feature-complete modules, and everybody will be happier in the end. One last thing we found out the hard way, that Drupal is ready for the cloud, because all of a sudden our shared memory provider goes bankrupt. There is no more support, and management tells us, guys, stop what you're doing. We need to move the entire infrastructure to Amazon Web Services, and the budget is unlimited. Take whatever you want. We just have to move as fast as possible, because if the disk drops, every site of the Flemish government of the radio and television will be down. So budget was unlimited, and we were very happy. Project Circus moved to the cloud. It was really a great time, but I think by saying that, we never were as efficient as we were those 4 weeks. The first week, we just analyzed. Everybody was experimenting in the web services. We were like looking, setting up servers and stuff. And the second sprint, we moved all our websites. It was the cheapest infrastructure move we ever did. So maybe it's a small takeaway to your developers. Tell them budget is unlimited. Tell them they can have the Visa card number, and they'll be very efficient. They'll be like super, super cheap. If you're interested in the infrastructure of the Amazon Web Services, come to me after the talk. Every time we eat waffles after we go live, so these are the chocolate waffles. And please take 5 minutes to rate my talk. I'm very interested in your feedback. I'm trying to present it some other time, so thanks for coming.